the one thing you never want to happen is you never want Russia and China uniting. We united them. It's a shame. The stupidity of what they've done. Well, I'm going to have to ununite them, and think I can do that too. I have to ununite them.
This isn't 1968, and this isn't Richard Nixon, and this isn't Mao Zedong. Um, this is Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, who have a long history of being, um, very friendly in terms of their personal relations. And we're dealing with a situation where Russia and China have become extremely, in an unprecedented fashion, interlinked economically. And they have they have shared geopolitical interests around the world that are keyed on, American aggressive posturing vis-a-vis Ukraine when it comes to Russia and vis-a-vis Taiwan when it comes to China. And most importantly, they have one of the longest shared borders in the world. When people talk to the Russians and Chinese about, their friendship and what drives, they say, we're neighbors. We have no choice. Um, so I just think it's amateurish in the extreme to talk about separating Russia from China or buying Russian neutrality. That isn't going to happen. Vladimir Putin is not a child. I mean, to be honest, that question implies that the Russians are childlike and Vladimir Putin is a child. He is an adult. Let me just remind everybody listening that Vladimir Putin's Russia kicked America's butt, kicked Europe's butt, economically, diplomatically, militarily. So why now is Russia going to fold like a little child because daddy came home and threatened to take his belt off? No, this is stupid. Russia and the United States have a transactional relationship taking place, which is going to be entered at the expense of Ukraine and Europe. Um, Russia is not going to change its relationship with China. If anything, Russia will use its closeness with China to help compel the United States to enter into a similar transactional engagement with China over Taiwan, resolving the Taiwan issue. Donald Trump, again, is a transactional man. He is not seeking a war with China. This is what people need to understand. Just because he says that China is our adversary, it's an economic adversary, a competitor. He's not looking for a war with China. So, if anything, the interaction with Russia serves as a template that can be used in the Pacific to resolve the Taiwanese issue so that the United States and China can enter into similarly beneficial trade relationships that the United States is entering with Russia. That is the goal. That is the objective. I think there's too many people who are live in a fantasy world driven perhaps by past practice that think that the United States is seeking military confrontation with China. I remind everybody listening, this is a revolution, people. America is in the midst of a revolution. What you thought you knew about America, you don't know. If you don't recognize the revolution, you know nothing. If you're going to cite to me a Brookings report written 3 years ago, it only shows your ignorance. I don't want to hear about a Brookings report written 3 years ago. I don't want to hear about a Council for Foreign Relations report that was written 2 years ago. None of that matters. All of those reports were linked to the deep state, to the establishment viewpoint. The establishment is dead. It is being slaughtered in the streets of America as we speak. Things are going to be happening here. They're going to shock all of you. Institutions that you thought were rock solid, that have been around for decades, will disappear overnight. Public figures that once dominated the airwaves with their cockiness and their aggressiveness will be let off in handcuffs for betraying the Constitution of the United States. We are in the midst of a constitutionally driven revolution. And from that comes a complete change in how the United States seeks to interface with the world. Since when has an American president, less than a month into his term, turned to the Pentagon before they've done any national security strategy workup and say, I want you to reduce the budget by 40% in 5 years? Name one president that did that, and you cannot. It has never happened before. Revolution. And if you're not buying into it, you're just going to be sitting back, getting it wrong on everything. You have to look at what the United States is doing through the prism of the revolution that is taking place domestically, and that resonates in a foreign policy fashion. The people that were calling the foreign policy, that were shaping foreign policy, are no longer in power. And the institutions that they used to influence have been dismantled or are being dismantled. USAID, the National Endowment for Democracy, all of this is gone, finished, never to return, permanently destroyed. This isn't just a hiccup. The other thing I remind people when they say, well, it's just a one-term president.
Right.
I'm
John
going to stare
Bolton.
you in the eye right now when I say this. One-term presidents don't accomplish anything. Two-term presidents do, but only at the end of their second term. The first term is spent learning, positioning, etc., playing politics. The second term, if they get one, is spent then negotiating to a conclusion at the end of the second term. Donald Trump, less than 1 month in what is, in effect, his second term, has achieved more change than, and he has 4 years remaining. This will be the most transformational period in modern American history. The world will have no idea what's hitting it in the face because they can't understand what's happening. You have diplomats, you have academics who are schooled in what America was, but America isn't that anymore. America is something completely different and so new and so in the midst of transformation that nobody understands what it is, not even people here in America. I wake up every morning shocked by what I'm reading, by what I'm seeing, positively so, because I'm somebody who said what was strangling America, the deep state, the establishment, had to go. And I prayed that Trump would be the man to get it done. But not in my wildest dreams did I see Donald Trump doing what he's doing in the time frame, with the speed, with the alacrity, with the fearlessness. It scares me, to be honest, because I'm a constitutionalist and I see the Constitution. It appears that the Constitution is being ignored in some cases, as he seeks to go after a bureaucracy that used the rule of law as a shield behind which they manifested their corruption. And so Donald Trump is attacking this. He has people. There was something I read earlier today, because when I try to explain this to people, I said, don't talk to me of Republicans and Democrats. The Republican Party no longer exists in terms of any meaningful power. And the Democratic Party is destroyed and in ruins. They said, well, Donald Trump's a Republican. Donald Trump's a Democrat who fled the Democratic Party. The Republican Party never knew how to handle him. What we're talking about here is MAGA, the MAGA movement. Look at what pushed Donald Trump across the finish line was his alliance this past summer with RFK Jr., the Make America Healthy Again movement, revolutionary, transformational, millions of Americans supporting him, came on board. Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat who resigned from the number 2 position, the Democratic National Committee, to support Bernie Sanders, and then was betrayed by Bernie, Hillary, and everything. Very popular amongst people of a certain age group and a certain mindset. And then Elon Musk, whom, I mean, how do you describe Elon Musk except revolutionary? And when these 3 people join forces with Donald Trump, this is not a political movement that we have ever seen in modern times. This is not a Democratic movement. This is not a Republican movement. This is something totally different, totally new, revolutionary in scope and scale. And unless you're willing to understand this, if you keep falling back on past templates where you try to apply a Republican template over what Donald Trump is doing, you will fail. If you say that he is simply a partisan going after the Democrats, you will fail. He is going after the duopoly. He is going after the corrupt system that existed. This is something completely new. And if you don't understand that, you're not going to get any of your analysis right about what's going on in the United States today.